So I've titled today's sermon as Embracing the Light of the Summer Solstice. And as the sun reaches its zenith, casting the longest shadow of the year, we gather in gratitude and openness. And today we honor this time, a moment when light triumphs over darkness and the earth stands still in its celestial dance. And this, of course, is a time to reflect on our shared humanity and the divine presence that unites us all. In many traditions, the solstice symbolizes a sacred union. In Wicca, as I said, it's known as Letha, and it's celebrating the fertility of the earth and the power of the sun, god and goddess, the celestial dance I mentioned earlier. And this union reminds us of the balance between, or rather, should I say, the need for the balance between the masculine and feminine energies of our world, both within and without, and all around us. Similarly, this time is acknowledged in Christianity, even the sun's journey across the sky, reflecting moments such as in Psalm 19, where the writer, the psalmist, says of the heavens declaring God's handiwork. And in the New Testament, for example, the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus teaches that God's love is like the sun shining upon us all. And he also says, just as the sun rises on both the righteous and the unrighteous. And it's a powerful, challenging, confronting truth that, of course, that is, in fact, the truth and the case, that the sun does rise on us all, righteous and unrighteous, however we might define that. There is a balance and equity in all of life. The solstice is also a time to acknowledge change. The Wiccans, who I've mentioned earlier, view the solstice as a reminder to us all that change is inevitable and natural. It's just how it is. And for us as Unitarian Universalists, the solstice is traditionally a time of reflection and growth, an opportunity to look back on this past year and appreciate any of the progresses or achievements that we've made. And then also to set our intentions for the future. What is it that we want? And as we bask in the sun's warmth, let us remember the light within each of us. The solstice invites us to shine brightly in the world and to share our gifts with the world and to live with intention and purpose and, as Naomi Shahib Nye said, with kindness. It's also a time to remember that we live in a two-hemispherical world. Sometimes it's easy for us to get a little myopic and forget sometimes about the world that goes on around us. And of course, the other side of the world where I'm beaming into you from, we're in winter solstice. So it's a strange juxtaposition. We at the moment are considering all that it means for us in terms of darkness. And we've just experienced our longest night. And to know, of course, that now our days are getting longer, and you in the Northern Hemisphere, your days are getting shorter. So it's a powerful reminder to us that must always be aware of the experience of the other. It's not necessarily our experience. And light, of course, casts shadow. And we have to be mindful of our shadows within. And the shadow, of course, that we cast upon each other, and the shadow that we cast upon our world. Just recently, I read the words of somebody who has written 2 books now on shadow work. Her name is Dr. Connie Zvig, or Zvig. I don't know how you pronounce it correctly. And she said this about shadow. If you think about what qualities were devalued in your family as opposed to rewarded, then these traits or feelings go into our shadow. And you can kind of imagine that the shadow is like a dark room in which our beliefs and feelings and attitudes lie. She, of course, is a Jungian expert, and Carl Jung is the one who coined the phrase and gave us the teachings around the shadow. His famous term, of course, for aspects of ourselves that hide in our unconscious and yet often drive behaviors that drag us down, or we can't control, or feel ashamed of, or don't want to admit to. But as we know from so many of the traditions, so many of the wisdoms that we've shared week in and week out, our duty, our service, the highest service that we can ever pay to ourselves, is to acknowledge the light and the shadow of our beings. The Tao, chapter 6, my favorite chapter. I know I've spoken on it before, says that the Tao, which of course is the force of life, the light of life, is endlessly pulsating, moving us, and I love this, towards our wholeness. So our path is to grow in self-awareness and to move towards personal and collective healing by learning how to make friends with and become more aware of our own shadows. Things that we might have repressed, things that we might have used spirituality to bypass round, things we might have tucked in the closet, locked, and maybe thrown the key away. I love that Dr. Svig talks about the need to romance our shadow, and also to be aware of where we see the shadow show up in our world, including, of course, the politics of our times. This is shadow work, unhealed, unacknowledged, unromanced things that are begging for our attention. And this is the gift of the light of the summer solstice. And in closing, let me share with you these 2 thoughts. The solstice is a reminder that we are all connected. And just as the sun's rays touch every corner of the earth, our actions impact the world around us. And let this be a time to commit to kindness, to reach out to whomever we find may be in need, and to work as we do. And I'm so proud to be part of this community because I know that this is part of our lifeblood, to continue our work to move towards a just and compassionate world. And I'd love to share one beautiful thought with you. For those of you who are familiar with him, I don't know if any of you have heard of a beautiful Vietnamese American by the name of Ocean Vuong. He's a poet, he's an essayist, he's a novelist, he's a young man. He won the MacArthur Award. He's won a ton of awards for his writing. He's a genius, in fact. He spent many, many years in New York, but currently now apparently he lives in Northampton, Massachusetts. He wrote his first novel was called On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. Isn't that delightful? On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. He says this, and this is what I'd like to leave you with. In his culture, his Vietnamese culture, similar to many cultures in the East, the practice when you enter someone's home is that you take your shoes off, as not only sort of trying to be clean and respectful of someone else's, sort of the floor of someone else's space, but also it's a sign of respect and humility. And he says this, Ocean says this, we should take off the shoes of our voice. And however that voice may turn up in the world, whether it's our actions, our protestations, what we say, what we put out into the world, what we share on social media, how we speak to ourselves, how we speak to our families, how we speak to our loved ones, whatever that loved one may be to you and to the world, that we may learn in greater ways of how to take our shoes off of our voice, that we may enter the space of another with humility and respect. And may we affirm this, that I may rise today embracing the light within and around me. I commit to living with purpose, to sharing my gifts, and to nurturing the world with love, kindness, and compassion. I am a beacon of hope, a reflection of the divine, and a part of the interconnected web of life. Thank you.
If you like this video, please like us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click on the bell to be notified whenever we post a new video. Thank you.